All right. All right. Let's get into this. Welcome to the feature update of today. I just want to discuss the change we've made. This is a massive update. This is arguably the biggest one so far in the history of Minoma Analytics. But I also want to just make the note that this is going to be a feature release that's going to be released in batches. So this is the first release. As we will see, it's only the daily time frame that I released. Before I continue, you probably already know, but this is about automations that we no longer have to manually input stuff, which is a massive improvement, as we will see. But I decided to first release the daily time frame and then gather some feedback, gather some data, see how it works. I just wanted to get it to you guys soon, and then I can adjust it, see what we're missing, see what we need, improve it, and then I will also start rolling out the additional features. It's also not the final version. I will probably adjust it, and I also have a final page that I want to implement that will tie everything really nicely together and make it a lot simpler. So if you are getting lost a little bit now, then I promise it's going to be simpler by the time I release all the updates that are part of this package. But I decided to do it incrementally. So with all that said, let's just dive into it. So the main thing that changed is previously we had to update everything ourselves. So I actually already have it on automatic here. So we had to update everything ourselves. So we put in the P1 hour and the P2 hour, and we did that by looking at what the P1 hour was and then the P2 hour, right? And then we would say 413. It's no longer necessary. I'm going to start easy to more complicated. This page easiest. What we can do is do input mode and then automatic. And what it does then is you will see that it switched to 4 and 13 because that's what we have right now on Bitcoin. Our P1, our 4, P2, our 13. And this makes it way easier. For example, if we would switch to .USDT, you will see that if they are different, at least the P1s and P2s, look at that, 12 and 15, right? It will automatically switch to whichever P1 and P2 there is for that asset. Here, engine coin, we change, and then we will see after a couple of seconds, because that's to query the database, this changes as well. So we no longer, this obviously allows for way faster switching in between assets, but I want to make a couple of remarks here. It is not live data, right? It is refreshed every 5 minutes. It's refreshed every 5 minutes, okay? So you always want to check what the actual, so if you say, for example, here, I see 413, you always don't make any decision just based on the dashboard. Don't just short, right? Go here, actually check if it's true. But you can see here when the last update was in the UTC time zone. So you see here 4 p.m. And here I can see that right now it's 4:02 on this dashboard. This is also not live updated. It automatically pushes a refresh every 5 minutes, right? Every 5 minutes, this thing gets refreshed because the data gets scrolled every 5 minutes. Probably at some point, I will program this in a way that we get live data so that every change is immediately visible. But it's further in the future. For now, it's already a huge step forward that we get to do this every 5 minutes. But you want to keep an eye on this, as we will see. If we would do nothing now for a while, probably in 5 minutes, this would refresh. If you want to refresh it manually, you can press this button right here. See, you can see refresh visuals. So if I press refresh visuals, then you will see that this will update 1606. And now we can see that the last update is from 1605. But if you do nothing, this will automatically update. And also if you change filter settings, it will also automatically refresh. So those are good things to keep in mind. You don't see it now, but what I've done here, if because this is, you have to look at this as a beta feature. If my crawler that I wrote to crawl everything every 5 minutes suddenly stops working, then this will become red. Nothing to do with it now, but if you see this in red, that means that data is not getting updated properly anymore. So if you ever see that, then you know that's why. Right now it's updated. So basically what it will show red if this is at least 10 minutes earlier than this, because then should basically never be more than 5 minutes earlier than this part. So those are all the practical announcements I wanted to make about that. So again, every 5 minutes it gets updated, right? Every 5 minutes it gets updated. If you do nothing, you can press here to update it manually, and every time you change the filter, it gets updated too. All right. So that's it for this page. This page is the easiest. Then we can go on and we'll go, like, obviously I have the summary page, which is probably the biggest change of them all, but I'm gonna discuss it latest. But this is the biggest feature addition that we've had so far, I think. And this one takes a little bit to load because it's a very heavy query. But I'm gonna dive into this this page a little later. First, I want to discuss the distance. All right, so we see a couple of things here. Let's first revert back to the normal state of things. So this on manual and this on manual, I'm going to explain what this is. But this was the normal state of things. What I mean with the normal state of things is that before we had to update, the normal state was that the input mode was manual and the filter mode was manual, which means that the input mode is that we had to input here. So let me cover one thing at a time. We have input. So for example, right here, I have now what we used to do is go here, look at, for example, if I wanted to know how far P2 was, I would do this, negative 0.88%, negative 0.88%. I mean, you know how it works. And then I would see that 48.2% is lower than that, or the same level. So this is the input mode, right, to input these things. And also this thing, this one right here. What input mode does, so for example, if I change it to something completely else, is that right here we see the current statistics. So we see that current P1 hour is hour 4. The distance to P1 is 1.1%. So that is this. We can check this, right? More or less 1.1%, because this is rounded to 1 decimal point. And then the distance to P2 from daily open is negative 0.9%. And we already saw that was negative 0.88. So we know that's true. What this does is we can, for example, say input mode. If we say P2 automatic, it will fill in here the distance to P2. Right, so this one's always going to be the same. So we see now that the distance, the total distance, well, I don't have it here, but it's the total distance is 1.1 plus 0.9, obviously. So we can see that the total distance from P1 to P2 is negative 2%. And if we check that here, we can see that's true. What it does is that it automatically fills that in here. And we can see here that what it did is that it filled in the negative 0.9. So that is P2. So we can see here now how likely is that P2 to, or how likely is the P1 to hold based on these numbers. What we can also do is that we can put P1 automatic, and then the only thing it changes is that it changes here, it looks at the P1. So we can see now that the 1.1%, so the percentage of first pivots more than 1.1% away from daily open, is that it automatically filled in this one. So again, I can switch back to manual, and then it will fill in this one. Again, fill in P1 automatic, and then it will look at, it will enter this one right here and look at that data. And we can also see this changes accordingly, and we can do P2 automatic. So P2 automatic is the one I would use the most probably. I'm not really going into the workings of this dashboard because I discussed that in previous videos. I just want to discuss more of what changed now. So if you're confused about how this works, then please watch the videos where I explain this dashboard. The only thing that changed until then is that I added this because I think it's important to see what the current data is, so you get a little bit of an idea of like, okay, what am I looking at? And obviously the automatic filter. So the input is simply just that what we used to do manually, so checking what the distance was here, is now done automatic, right? And we can see that now it's very easy. For example, if I go to Doge, this will change, right, based on what Doge is doing, and I can very easily see what are the statistics for Doge, right? And I can do that for anyone. I mean, look how fast it is now, right? Link, bang, immediately. I mean, that's such a massive improvement. Such a massive improvement that used to cost so much time. I mean, to be honest, it was probably not possible to check all these points easily, but now it is very easy to do it. All right, so we move on to the input to the filter function, because you're probably wondering what is the filter function. The filter function, let me close this for a bit. The filter function is basically, so we can filter this. So say, for example, I'm looking at, okay, what are the odds of P2 becoming P1? What I want to do is, so I see now, well, I see it here, that current P2 is hour 13. And I've already told you guys that what I usually do then is look at the hours 12, 13, 14, because if we would get a P1, P2 flip, that would mean an afternoon P1, right? The afternoon P1, P2 flip. So I wanted to see the data based on this. And then you can see that it's already, you know, it's 76.8% instead of what we had at 50 or something. So now I definitely know, okay, this is not something I want to be placing any bets on. What filter mode does, if I put this to automatic, is that it automatically filters this, right? So I don't have to manually put this anymore. So you can kind of see this as distance adjusted filtering, right? Which is sort of similar to what do you say? Similar to the time adjusted filtering. So if I do filter mode, what you can see, and I'm going to make this a little bit more visually clear. I'm going to create some other things that is clear. But if I put this automatic, you can see the data changes. Basically, what it does is exactly the thing we just did. So we look at the current P2 hours, 13. And in this case, you can see this became blue. Also, you can see that these are the remaining P1 hours, right? So it automatically selected hours 12 to 19 because it sees, well, this is hour 13. So we have to look at this data. And you can see here very well that whatever is selected now in this data range is blue. So I'll do that again. If I go to manual, you can see everything is blue, but I put filter mode automatic, and then I'm looking at data only for these hours. If I go to P1 automatic, you can see this is P1 hour, it's 4. So then it will change, see, it will change the P1 hours to these selected. So hours 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So these right here. So you can see that filter mode automatically filters this, right? So all in all, what I would suggest doing, at least understand what the filter mode is doing, right? I chose these because I think for now these work well together. I think these are more or less, well, hour 0 is something on its own. You have to decouple those. I could even envision grouping these together and then these, but I'll speak to that later. For now, I think this grouping is fine. So what I would personally do is do filter mode on automatic, but just understand what it's doing. I think it's very important to understand what it's doing, and then also make sure that, well, no, actually, that's it. Just make sure you know what you're doing, right? Just make sure you know what you're doing. So this whole process is just what we used to do automatically. So say, for example, my P2 hour is now hour 13. I mean, if I would look at if I only remove hour 0, you can see that this goes from 48.2% to 62, right? So that's a massive difference. So hour 0, if you put it in P1, it's obviously going to be way closer to the daily open. So that's why we don't want to take it, right? I discussed this in the previous video, but if I put now everything automatic, it just adjusted. So now, it's very easy to go through all the coins and look, it will give me all the adjusted probabilities, which is very, very, very valuable. And I go here, dot, you can see how fast it works. Just works really fast. All right, so one more thing I want to say is that if you have filter mode active on automatic, so now what we see here is all the recent days. I don't know if anyone's using this, but I'm using this table a lot. That gives a good idea. For example, now I can immediately see like, wow, hour 8, 2 times in a row. Here 13, 14, 13. Hour 0 not happening that much. Anyway, I would like to use. So what I usually do is that I would do filter mode automatic, and what it does is that it selects only P1 hours that are these, right? So we already know these are the filters. These are the P1 hours we're looking for. And you can see that now the P1 hours are only, so it's only showing the days in which P1 was an afternoon, right? Any of these hours. And the reason I do that is I'm trying to judge, okay, what is the likelihood of this P2 becoming P1? So I kind of want to see, okay, recently, what was the distance for this, what was the distance that was put in from daily open for those hours? What I can do then, shift, select this, and then it will show me only the P1s that were negative, right? So that we're below the daily open. So where P1 was the low, that's how you have to see it. So now just showing the data for if this would happen, then it's showing all those P1s that were the low, because this just simply means that P1 was below daily open, right? It's negative. So now I can see very easily here that, well, usually right now it's negative 0.9%. If we put in P1 at this hour, actually it's very often a lot further than where we are now. So what's in the green is what I discussed before. Should probably make this the same color as this to make it more clear. But what's in the green is what was closer than where we are now. So this one, right? We are now negative 0.9% away. And what is in the red is what's further away, or where the first pivot was further away from daily open. So we can see immediately that most of the time the first pivot is actually further away from daily open if it's put in during these hours. So I'm going to be less confident about this happening if I see that, right? But the main takeaway, I don't want to discuss too much how to interpret it. I will do that in a live stream or another video. The main takeaway is that filter mode automatic also filters this table based on these hours. And if I go to P1 automatic, you will see it will give me only days that had these hours right here. And you can do exactly the same thing. Oh, and now I have to deselect this for a bit. And there we go. So now it's showing me right now these days that has P1 for these hours. So right now P1 is hour 4, and it's filtering based just for those days. So now I can do the same thing, right? We have now currently the P1 is above 0. I'll select those. It's hour 4, and then I can see. I can do exactly the same thing. See how often we are further than where we are now, or how often P1 gets put in further from daily open than that is currently the case, and how often it is closer. So this is further, red, and this is closer. All right, hope that that part makes sense. Again, I know I am skipping fast over the function of it because, like I said, I've already discussed it. I just want to focus on the automations of things. I really want to focus here on what has changed from a technical point and how do you use it and how does it impact the dashboard. And then how to interpret it. I've already discussed this, and the data is exactly the same. It's just that we don't have to filter everything ourselves. So if you want to see this all the days here, then you simply have to press manual, and then it will show all the days right here. All right, so far for this page right here, I want to go on to the summary page, which I think is the most anticipated page. And this is the thing I'm personally most excited about. This is the thing I have been envisioning to build ever since I first started this. When I first released the first version of the dashboard, it was always my intention to get to a similar place as this. Again, this is not the final version. This is, for me, I don't like the layout that much, but I just wanted to get the data to you guys. I will probably change it over the coming weeks or the coming week, also depending on feedback. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and explain what are we looking at. And it's something I've alluded to a couple of times already. It is an automated overview of the current statistics or the current probabilities based on the current price action, which is absolutely amazing in my opinion. This was always the thing I really, really wanted to implement. Because imagine if you're an alt trader. If you're an alt trader, then what we previously had to do is go to all the alts, go to the charts, look at P1, look at P2, and insert those things manually into the dashboard. So I think realistically speaking, there was a limit to how many alts you could chart. You would probably not go to 10 different alts and put in the distance from P1 to P2, the distance from daily open to P1, the current P1 hour, current P2 hour, and so on, right? Now we have an overview. So this is all live data again, right? Live data from the markets. So for example, we can check Rune USDT, distance the open to P2. Let's check that. Let's check Rune. I don't even have Rune in here, so I'm going to add it because I do want to add everything I have in there. So I'm just going to go that. Oh, wait, I should get the Bybit pair. All these are from Bybit data, so if you're thinking about getting it, just realize that we're looking, oh, wrong one, Rune USDT. Let me delete this thing. So we can see P1 hour 0, P2 hour 14, Rune USDT is also here, right? So here we have the time adjusted statistics. So this is just showing, I might combine all this in one table, but I thought it would be too busy. But here you can hour 0, hour 14, right? And we'll get the automated time adjusted statistics. But what we can see, I'll get back to that later, what we can see as well is that, well, the distance from the daily open to P2, so this one right here, is, there you go, 12.1%, right? As is the case here. And P1, P2 just a little bit lower. And it's what it's showing here is that it's the bullish direction, and there's a confidence of 97.5%. Okay, I want to stand still a little about what the confidence means. The confidence is very simple. It is the literally 100% minus this, right? So you can see 97.5% plus 2.5% is 100%, right? It is that easy. The reason I did it is because I think this is the least confusing way to do it, and I will explain why. So what we're basically trying to do is what we're seeing here. If we go to distance and we go to Rune USDT, Rune, and again, everything can be nicely automated. We do it like this. We look at P2 automated, and then we let this thing fill in the data for us. So we can see that, it's very unlikely that we're going to nuke from here. Only 2.5% of the time for this data, which is one occurrence, I could probably use a little bit more data. But for the sake of argument, it's just a very low chance that this is going to be it. So basically what the summary is showing us is that 2.5% of the P1s are put in further than our current P2, right? Which makes a lot of sense. If you look at this, you wouldn't expect an immediate nuke. This is obviously a very extreme example. This is for the sake of argument. So if we go back to our summary page, and this page takes a little longer to look because it's a big, it really has to do a lot of calculations. But what we can see is here is that represented, right? There's 2.5% of the time. Do we have a P1, further away from the daily open, right? So 2.5% of the time we have a P1 that is further than 12.1% from the daily open. Now what the confidence is saying, but basically what I do is I flip that around. I say, well, that means that there's 97.5% confidence interval. I wouldn't want to say probability. Don't see this as a probability. Please don't see this as a probability. I advocate this a lot. All right, I don't want this to turn this into a buy-sell signal. This is just pure statistics. But you could say that in 97.5% of the days, you do not have a P1 that is as far as P2 right now. So the reason I did it like this is because what you want to do is you want to have a P1 confidence as high as possible, and you want to have this one as high as possible, right? You want to have this one as high as possible, and you want to do this one as high as possible. Why? Because if this one is as high as possible, so right now you could translate this as, well, there's a 97.5% probability of P1 holding, but there's only an 18.5% chance that we are going to go higher for the day. And that's obviously because we already had this massive impulse. So in this case, you want to have this one as high as possible and this one as high as possible. Because if this one is high and this one's high, that means there's high confidence to hold the first pivot. And there's a high confidence to go further for the day. This is how I interpret it, right? I'm just explaining how I interpret it. Obviously, do what you want with the data. There's no rules here. We're all discovering, but this is how I interpret it. So, and that's the reason why I flip this around, because I think it's more intuitive that you can say, well, I want this one as high as possible and this one as high as possible, rather than saying, okay, I want this one as low as possible and this one as high as possible, right? Because it's the same thing. You're doing the exact same thing. You're saying, okay, well, this one as low as possible and this one is high as possible. But I figured I'd flip it around and just say, okay, this one is high as possible, this one is high as possible. So you could already say here that these, are they're very high probability to hold. And this is what you're obviously going to see. The further away you go, the more likely the P1 is to hold. So there's this little sweet spot for coins where you have a decent confidence of holding P1, but also still a good probability of going further. And that's kind of where the sweet spot lies. And so, for example, a good one right now would be Matic, where we can see we went down 3.4% in total. The current distance from daily open to P2 is 3%, and we have an 88% chance of a bigger move. So 3 out of 4 times the P1, or 3 out of 4 days to P1 would be closer than what the current P2 is, or the 1 out of 4 times this P2 would flip it. So let's go to the chart to make it a little bit more clear. And this is where I would apply statistics, or apply TA as well. So here you can see it. We have the P1 here, the P2 here. And what we can do is that we can select this one. So we select the Matic. You can select whatever you want. I'm going to show you some more features on that. There's actually quite a lot to discuss. I mean, this was a hell of an update, I'll tell you that much. And what we can see here is that now it selects the Matic here as well, right? So I only have Matic selected, so now I can very easily see what the time statistics are. You see current P1 hour 0, current P2 hour 9. I can see that, on a time-based perspective, there's also a high chance of hour 0 holding, and a very low chance of the current P2 holding as either P1. So this is saying what is the chance of our current P2 holding becoming P1. So this is the P1 P2 flip, and this is for it to stay P2 for the day. So both are very low. So now if you see this, right, this is high, this is high, this is high, this is low, you might say, okay, that's a very interesting setup. Then what you do is I would highly suggest, use this as an overview. I mean, you do you, obviously, but I would not make decision based on this page alone. I would use it as a way to scan where possible opportunities are. What I would personally do then is go into, I've now identified, well, Matic looks very promising. So I go here, then I go to Matic, and, it all doesn't really cost that much effort anymore. Now everything is automatic. I can see 0 and 9. And what I would like to see, for example, is what the changes are. So here I can see that, we had a negative 11.2% change in hour 0. So it's actually not happening that much anymore. And well, basically, I don't want to get through the whole analysis of things, but I would start looking at these pages, distance as well, right? Just see how everything is going. I can, for example, now see if I select these, so all the days where P1 was the low, what I'm doing. So again, I'm trying to find this scenario, like how likely is it to do this? And we already have seen statistically that this one is likely to hold. And then I can see that, well, lately it's not actually been happening. Only this one, this day was where P2 or P1 was further than where we are now. So further than negative 3%. And then these are more or less close, but that's kind of what you're looking at. But I also want to say that this is also where I would combine TA. So it's very good for scanning. What I would probably do is I would start with this summary, look at the summary, identify Matic. Then what I would probably do is go to the charts, see what the chart looks like. And for example, I don't really like this high. As I said before, I really like my pivots to be liquidity sweeps. So for example, this or something like, if this would have happened, this would have made me way more confident in saying, all right, we're going lower, right? Because again, 1 in 4 times this will happen, not a lot. But if I would have seen this kind of price action and then down, then I would have been way more confident saying, okay, lower is more likely. But if I see this, maybe I will decide to say, well, I don't really like, I in my experience, if you have price action that goes like this into the daily open and keeps grinding down, oftentimes they get taken out later on. And this is also something I want to develop features for, so we can see when a pivot was a liquidity sweep or not. But for me, this might be enough for me to say, okay, this is not the highest probability pivot. Because I do think we're going to have or at least I hope, we're gonna have the luxury of being picky, right? Because now we just have this, we have this amazing overview of these kind of coins, and it's very quick to spot these kind of setups. And then, you know, I can just say, well, that one is not really my thing right now. I can go on to the next one. Engine coin, 75% chance of P1 holding, and a 67% chance of going low. So maybe also not the best one. You definitely, I think you will see better ones, but for the sake of argument, let's just go into it. There we go. Hour 0, hour 11. What we can do is put in this one, engine coin. And then what we see, hour 0, hour 11, well, we can see now that hour 11 is absolute shit pivot to hold. We have this 75%, and you know, so this might actually tell us like, well, that might be a good setup to take out this low right here. But again, you know, I see the same kind of price action here, just grind down. In this case, I do think this one looks a little better because obviously we're way, you know, there's a very low chance of either of this one holding. So then I would probably go into the time page right here, look at engine coin and see whatever that is doing. Let's just do it. Why not? Why not? Let's just do it. Go to the time statistics. Go to engine coin. Man, as someone who's been using this manually for so long, this is so enjoyable. Yeah, and then, you know, this is what I want to see. And then I see that there's no real change. Hour 11 is an absolute clusterfuck of a P2 or P1 to put in. So it's not a good one. So then, you know, if I would see this somewhere earlier, hopefully, so this pivot was put in during New York, then, you know, that might have been a good short targeting this, because we've already seen that it is quite likely to hold, statistically speaking. So I think you get the general essence of how to use this space to scan of what the highest probabilities are. I mean, you can also order based on this. So, you know, if I press this header right here, and what it's going to do is it's going to sort the columns here. I personally like to just look at this one first, because I think this one is leading, and then just select whatever one I'm looking at, because I do think it's very important to have both of them. All right, some other things that I want to discuss. I'm going to go one by one. You can see the little arrow right here. You're probably wondering what the arrow is referring to. Basically, an arrow up means that lately it's been happening more. So you can put in recent days here. So I have it at 50. I'd probably leave it at 100 or something, to be honest. Or maybe 50, I don't know. I have to play around with it, but basically what it's checking is that, you know, in recent days, has this been happening more or less? So if I press the last 100 days, what I can see is that in the last 100 days, you know, over the last, this period, the confidence is 75.7%, but over the last 100 days, the confidence would be even higher. So if I would check the last 100 days, you can see that this would be a lot higher, and we've already seen it actually for Matic. So that would mean that actually it is in the last 100 days, there is less than 24.3%, a lot less than 24.3% P1s with a bigger distance than -3%. So it's just been happening less lately. So the main thing you have to realize is that if this means up, it's good. You want to see this up. If it means up, it means it's been happening more. There's a greater confidence in this happening over the last days. So not only does your higher time frame say a high confidence, but also the recent trend. So this is basically the recent trend indicator, right? It's measuring the recent trend. Is this trending into, or is the trend saying that recently this has been happening the same, which is sideways arrow, right? This as well, it's pretty much the same for the last 100 days. This, well, it's a lot less confident lately, which indicates that actually, you know, we do see a lot more of these things getting taken out. So I do want to make that clear. So for example, if I go to Matic, if I see an increase of confidence, that means there's a decrease in P1 with a bigger distance. So let me go to Matic once more. And I'll probably be able to see that. So right now I'm looking at P2s, right? I'm having the current P2 negative 3%. So we can see it's ending right here, right? So this area right there, what I can do is I can select all these. So all the P1s that were daily lows. And then we get here, and then you can see indeed everything in green is what is less, is P1s that are less than negative 3%, as we discussed. And I can see just going through it like this that indeed lately it's barely been happening, right? It's barely been happening. So this is why that recent trend is saying up, because it is, we have more confidence now that this won't happen, because it's been happening less recently that a P1 was negative 3% or more, right? We can just see that, well, this has indeed taking out a P1, P2, or doing a P1, P2 flip from this distance has not been happening a lot lately. And that is why the summary play shows up. And if any questions, because I know there's a lot to discuss, and I know something might get confusing, just drop them in the chat. But the main of it is this: P1 confidence. What you want to look at is you preferably see that up arrow. If it's down, you probably want to investigate it a little bit further, because if I see 6.7% chance, but less confidence over the last 100 days, this probably means that over the long run, only 33.3% of the time this would result in a P1, P2 flip, this kind of distance. But lately it's been actually happening more, which indicates an increase in volatility, which is possible. So you want to be aware of that. So that's P1 confidence and the recent change. I'll probably add a little bit more of these arrows on other columns as well. For example, I would like to see it on this one, this one, this one. It's going to be shit on the work to implement, but whatever. UX above everything. And two more things I need to discuss. So here you see pivot group, hourly. And basically what you can do, you can choose hourly and 3 hourly. So what this is we already know that at the time statistics, we can look at the data in single hours in the day, right? So we have hours 0 to 24 right here. But what we can also do is press up arrow here, and then we can look at clusters of 3 hours. And by the way, here also the automatic mode works, right? It just automatically says, okay, so the first pivot was in between in this cluster, and the second pivot in this cluster. So it works here as well. But we know we can look at data like this, and this is also where you see that recently, man, like these improbable hours have really been happening a lot more. So these three together are actually, if I would just shift select these, then we can see here that, look at that, like over the last 60 days, is actually 45% of the time P1 was put in during these hours, which is crazy. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in that, but it's definitely been happening a lot more. I know I was speaking with Terror about it, but what this is showing, and I'm going to make this more friendly, I'm going to try to implement some information toggles and stuff, so you can just see it pop up and see what it's doing. But basically what it's doing right now, it's looking at what's probability of this holding as a single hour, right? So what's the probability of P1 holding as hour 0? And what this is doing is that it will calculate the probabilities based on 3 hour blocks. So definitely for P2s, I prefer to look at the 3 hour blocks. So right now it is looking at this as, okay, the 3 hour block of hours 0, 1, and 2, as we just saw on the other page. It just groups that together, and it then just calculates the statistics based on that. So that's just what it is. It's basically you're just choosing that. Okay, do you want to calculate the statistics based? And let me show that one more time. Based on this view, right? So the hours, each hour of the day, or do you want to calculate the statistics based on this view? That's what you're doing with that one. And I know some people like to use the 3 hour blocks, so that's why I implemented it in there. Right, then one more thing. I do think, by the way, that the real power of this is yet to come. So now we have the daily time frame. I do think the real power is going to come when we're going to integrate other time frames as well. So weekly, daily, 8 hour, 4 hour, and 1 hour, obviously. And I think it's going to be very interesting. For example, if you see the weekly and the daily are down, and the weekly is strong confidence down, and the daily strong confidence down, and the 4 hour, for example, is trending up, then you could say, well, both the weekly and the daily are going down, and the 4 hours going up, which is a retracement. So I want to be looking for shorts, because both the weekly and the daily are indicating that lower is likely. And that I think is going to be very powerful. That's also the thing I want to make, is that I want to make a grand overview where you see all the, and I yet to decide how to do this. I fear I must enter the realm of more buy sell signals kind of thing, although I will definitely tread carefully there. But what I want is an overview where it just says very simply weekly strong bull, daily strong bull, 4 hour weak bear or something, something like that. And then if you have that overview, then it will be very easy to combine everything and say, okay, the daily and the weekly are aligning, or multi time frame statistical analysis. So right now we don't have the other time frames yet, purely because I'll probably change a couple of things in this. I first just want to see how you guys are using it. I want to see how I am using it. I want to see how valuable it is. Then I want to make the adjustments I think are necessary, because I do think this is going to be 1 or 2 weeks of adjusting it, optimizing it, and seeing what the page eventually will turn into. And then I will replicate it into the other time frames, because it's an ungodly amount of work. So I don't want to start implementing everything and then in the end having to change everything, right? All right, that was a whole lot of talking. I have one more thing to discuss, and that is actually the filter pane right here. And this is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna leverage this feature more often. So for example, what happens if I press this table and I expand. So if I expand here, show the filter pane, I just click this table. Let me declick it. I click this table, and here you can see the filters are showing. So what you could, for example, do is say, well, I'm not interested in seeing any coins that are less than 50% of days with a bigger move. I don't care about that, because there's a very low chance we're going to get there. So if I see here, I can show items when the value is greater than or equal to, and then I can say 50%. I don't know if this works. Let me check. Yeah, there you go, 50%. And then I press apply filter on the bottom right. What it's going to do now is going to take a bit. I'm going to see if I can speed this thing up. I don't think so though, because it's such a massive calculation that it might not be able to do this. But what you can see now is that now the coins that have less than 50% move are now filtered out of that table, or have less than 50% of chance of a bigger move are now filtered out of the table, right? Because those first ones, they might have had a big P1 confidence, but they did not have a big probability of going further, because we already had seen such a displacement. So now I won't see them to begin with, right? And you can do this, for example, or if you want, you can also filter out these ones right here that have a lesser confidence. Oh, sorry, this one. I have a lesser confidence than, 50%, whatever you want. But you can use this filter pane. So you have to click this table, and then you can filter on these columns, right? Again, if I click away, no filters. If I click here, filters. See? So personally, I would probably have these on 50% or something, because I don't want to see moves that already moved really a lot. Or maybe I'll set it to 40%. Then you can always judge. Then there's here the assets column. Now, there's so much to talk about. There's the assets column right here. So you can choose which assets you want to see. So for example, I will probably turn off BTC USDT. You could say, for example, you're not a Doge trader, you're not a file trader, you're not an ETH trader, you're not an ETC trader. I don't know, whatever floats your boat, right? and then it will just remove all these assets that you just deselected from the tables, and you no longer have to look at them to begin with. Still loading. Give it some time. There you go, right? So maybe you have a list for yourself of coins that you want to trade, and you can select just those coins. All right, so I hope it's clear how all this works. Obviously, you can do the same here. If I click this table right here, you have the same filter options, right? So I could filter, for example, P1s that have a high probability of holding, high then, I don't know, 50, 60%. Personally, I don't think I would be filtering this table myself. I am mostly interested in filtering this table. So I'll definitely I think I will keep the settings like this. I really like this. And I think especially on the 4 hour, this one is going to be mega good to use, because we've already seen that the 4 hour needs a very small move to have a great confidence to hold P1. So I think that, yeah, I'm really looking forward to implementing this one on the 4 hour and putting everything together. But man, there was a lot of talking. I don't know how long I've been talking. Let me quickly jump in the chat. What's up, Ed? What's up, Mammon? I'm looking at a gold mine. Holy. Yeah, I really like what I'm looking at as well, man. I'm not gonna lie. It's clean, man, and easy to read. For now, I think it's great. Amazing. That's fire, bro. Scan on steroids. Yeah, beta testing starts now. Nice. Great. You can really be proud of yourself. Massive work, and it looks juicy. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I must say, this is, I think, the first time since I started building this that I'm gonna take a moment to sit still and reflect, because for me this was the big milestone I've always been working towards. And you can see this has been updating while I've been talking. So really nice here. You can see last update 445. So everything, the systems on the back end are so far running fine. There's one more thing I want to discuss. And that is, I'm going to utilize this filter pane more often. This is more like the advanced section. So I've already shown this in the chat, but here, the previous direction, what you can do is that you can say, so this is basically saying that filter on days where the previous day was bearish and where the previous day was bullish. So if I say, for example, right now, I don't know what did Matic do yesterday? Matic. So the previous day was bearish, you see that. So then I can say, well, the previous day was bearish. I could even automate this, to be honest, that I just automatically adjusts. Yeah, in this case, for Matic, it doesn't seem to have that much of a difference. If the previous day would have been bullish, would have also not made much difference. I mean, it's also just so far at the start. Because here you can definitely see here that if the previous day was bullish, then this is a lot shallower than if the previous day was bearish, which is the same thing we saw with Bitcoin, where basically so here's the previous day was bearish. You can see that there's a lot more probability to have a slight bullish day compared to a big bullish day. Oh, sorry, I'm not even selecting it properly. Oh no, I did. So you can see there's a lot bigger probability of having a slight bullish day after a bearish day than if the previous day was bullish. So some interesting stuff. This is just like the beginner-friendly version of the filter pane, but I will be adding more stuff to here, so you can have more customizable options and you can really start looking for edges. But also something I am working towards. There's still plenty of ideas left in the tank, guys, but for now I am going to focus on optimizing what we have right now. And once this page is optimized and the other features, I do think the distance and the time pages are fine now. I think they work pretty good. Maybe a couple more adjustments and fine tunes, but then it will mostly be looking at the summary page, how I really wanna design this properly. Because again, this is like the first release. I don't think it's gonna look the same in 1 week, but yeah, let's see. For now, I do think I covered everything. So we've already, you could already see that you pretty much could see two setups. Personally, yeah, I don't like this high at all. As I discussed already, I don't like this high as well. It's just not a clean high. It's not what you usually want to see, in my opinion. But we can, if like I said, I can, for example, say now, well, I don't, well, this one actually, I would not be scared to take a short actually, because we've seen these statistics are really bad, and we've already, we reviewed really far from that. What's the statistics on engine coin for this one? 24.4%, but has been happening less lately. So higher confidence lately. So, then I would probably be eager to take a short. Matic, not so much, because with Matic, I've already discussed it. Maybe we'll work out. I will also have to see, but I can just say, well, I would have rather seen this, so I'm just gonna wait for another day. And if we get like the weekly and the 4 hour in there, we can always, so say for example, now I would have 4 hour data, and the 4 hour would tell me as well, like engine coin is going down, high probability of going down. So that's the thing I'm gonna work towards, right? So right now we have the day saying, okay, high confidence of going down for these two. Imagine right now we also have the 4 hour, and they just flip berries as well. So then you have confluence and maybe the weekly as well. And you have like a good retracement. Then that's something you want to get into. So exciting things to come. Definitely expect more. But yeah, like I said, I wanted to release this to you guys as soon as possible so we could just get a hang of it. So I could also test if all the technical systems are working, because this was a massive, massive update on the back end. Really had to develop a lot of things and reconfigure a lot of things, but it's all done now. It seems to be working pretty good. So I also wanted to see just how things are holding up, if everything works fine, there's no unforeseen cost, stuff like that. So just gathering feedback, and then when the days move on, I will be improving this, and eventually I will be releasing the different time frames and another big page that is going to be epic. So I think I have discussed it all. I'm pretty sure I've discussed it all. I don't see any questions, so I assume everything is more or less clear. There's always more to discuss than I think when I start these streams, but it's a good sign. It means a lot of work got done. All right, guys. So if there's no further questions, I would want to wish you a lot of fun using this. I hope you have as much fun as me with this data, and that you are as excited as me. I'm really excited about this data. This is so cool to finally have this. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to putting this into practice, seeing how it goes. And indeed, I want to say Terror is... if something comes up, ask it in Discord. But for now, I just want to say have fun with it, play around with it, and yeah, just let me know how you like it, and we'll see from there. All right, guys, it's all clear so far. Just go and take a well-deserved rest. You know what? Maybe I will do, man. Tonight was a late one. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy it. More good things to come. But yeah, man, we survived the manual inputs. We can now automatically gather data. All right, guys. Wish you a very good day, good week, and catch you on the next stream, which is already tomorrow, by the way. Tomorrow is a public X stream. So there we can, for the first time, start using our dashboard. It will be fun. So have a good one, guys, and catch you in the Discord and on the stream.